Hello and welcome back. Before we get to part 2, Real Talk, please allow us to fulfill our capitalistic duty and plug our Patreon, the Contrarian Supplements.
That's right. For a small fee, you too can help the Contrarians rage on.
We have tiers ranging from just $1 to $10. It all depends on how much content you can handle.
Starting at $1, it's the Travoltis tier, which gets you access to new bonus episodes focusing on a new movie every month, as well as access to the patron chat. Join other patrons in making fun of our opinions.
Moving up to $3 is the Winonis tier, which unlocks access to our pre-recording notes, our video reviews, and our spin-off show, Contrarians After Hours.
That's a more laid-back space where we talk about other things we've been watching, reading, playing, thinking about. Sometimes it's related to the movies being covered in the main feed, but it usually isn't.
If you want to be part of those patrons who help us shape the show by telling us which movies to tackle, that's when you sign up for the $5 tier, the Embries, and the $10, the Gads.
Finally, all supplement subscribers, regardless of the tier, get access to our archive of special patron projects. Head over to patreon.com/contrarianprime now to join.
Be sure to listen through the end of the episode to find out what's coming up to the Contrarian Supplements this month. Now, it's time for some Real Talk.
Mr. Utterling, is it true you're planning a Western?
This is Mr. Hannaford's night. Let's save the questions for him, huh? You two are very close, aren't you?
Yes, I'd like to ask you about that.
Why?
Come on, Otterlake. Why do you think you have to be as rude as he
As rude
is?
as you are, in print anyway.
I liked your last
Yeah,
picture.
sure.
No, I know that it was repetitive, but shit. But for what it was, it worked.
Yeah, well, she wasn't that kind to me in her review. Not that you did me too much harm. I mean, how much harm can you do to the third biggest grosser in movie history?
Really make that much? How marvelous.
Yes. Did you know that when his own production company goes public, that your friend there stands to walk away with $40 million?
Yeah, and she's going to say that I'm just going to keep on writing that I stole everything from you, Skipper. I'm never going to walk away from that.
Well, it's all right to borrow from each other. What we must never do is borrow from ourselves. Come on.
Julio, what a curious, almost mercurial way to end B2B. You can testify to the listening audience. When I laid out the roadmap for this is always how we were going to end it. But I had also never seen this movie. And so for all of like the titillation and, tawdry aspects of some of the things that we've gone through piece by piece, this is the most unsexy movie of this lineup so far. Romance is pretty unsexy, but
I mean, this is plenty of nudity, so I think that...
But in no way is any of it like hot or at all like arousing. It's just...
Not even the sex scene in the car. Like, it didn't really do anything for me, but I was trying to rewatch the documentary about this movie that's on Netflix, and there's a moment where somebody asked Danny Houston, or he's one of the people that's being interviewed there, and the sex scene comes up, and he basically starts fanning himself. And he's like, "Oh yeah, that scene in the car. I learned a lot from my dad." It's like, Jesus Christ, what? So I can see like that one is definitely attempting to be sexy. I think whether it succeeds for you or not, I don't know.
I guess that's true. Again, contrarians don't kink shame.
We do not Wells shame.
What we've established so far. It's just, from what I read this movie as at that point, it was so far into the realm of like self-parody that I was like, yeah, whatever. But we'll get to the connection here shortly. But Julio, a very legendary movie in many aspects. And all my joking aside from a moment ago, I think a kind of fun and almost fitting way for what you and I regularly do on here to end it with this one.
I mean, sooner or later, we're going to have to tackle an Orson Welles movie where he actually directed it, not just a cameo in a Muppet movie. So this is perfect in a way, because it's a movie of our time, but it's also a movie of Wells's time. And I think that there's a lot of interesting conversations that can come of it, even if the movie ends up being not really your cup of tea, so to speak, because it's an Orson Welles movie. I think that if this movie was not an Orson Welles movie, maybe it wouldn't be getting the attention that it got. And maybe we wouldn't even be that inclined to talk about it.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and leave with that. That's absolutely why this had the decades worth of push and intrigue behind it is because it was the lost Orson Welles film. And it's fine, but like, who's a really middling director? Like, if Brad Bird had a movie like this, it's not like...
Holy shit. All the Brad Bird fans getting the pitchforks.
I'm sorry, Brad Bird, clearly not a middling director, has had many successes. I'm just trying to think of someone who...
Who's our boy from He's Just Not That Into You and
oh, fuck, Goon?
License to Wed. Ken Kwapis.
Oh, Kwapis. No. I was thinking of Taking Me Home Tonight. Yes, Ken Kwapis. Yeah, I don't know, because he has the Office tie-in and their fans are weird. Point is, Orson Welles is one of the more legendary figures in the history of Hollywood. So it makes sense why the idea of having this was so sensationalized. And when it actually came to fruition, and look, it looks incredible. Like, the remaster of it. Do we know if it has a Criterion?
That's a good question because Netflix has done it before. So, man, if it doesn't, then why? Why not? Why the Criterion would usually jump to this? It would give you the two discs where one is the movie and the other one is the documentary.
Google's AI overview. Orson Welles' completed 2018 film The Other Side of the Wind is not part of the Criterion Collection and does not have any official physical release.
Boo.
Yeah. So, anyway, look, there's a lot to go behind, like, why this was so sought after and the holy grail for some people. For our wrestling fans out there, it was the Tom McGee Bret Hart match of like, holy shit, like there's this lost Orson Welles movie out there.
For Contrarians fans, this is the Black Dahlia director's cut.
Oh, baby. The 3-hour black and white Black Dahlia director's cut. I was trying to think earlier too, like what else would be in canon is like what we've just like been teased with that exists somewhere in the ether. But that has to be like at the top of the list because we don't even know if that actually exists. That's just something like we've read about was the original idea. So
we will will it into existence, Alex. Eventually, we'll be
that,
like.
And I'm sorry, I just remembered it. It's the 3-hour Joel Schumacher Batman Forever cut. That's
okay.
the other.
That one exists though. People say that they've seen it.
That's yeah. You're right. I'm sorry. Yes. There is, besides Brian De Palma, no one is ever fucking Josh Hartnett is not aware of this 3-hour black and white Black Dahlia cut. So
it's like, nobody talked to me about this. I didn't sign any releases. No, I was going to say that eventually we're going to be like Elon Musk, who's planning to make his own version of the Odyssey, and we will make our own version of, we'll do our own 3-hour Black Dahlia cut. We'll just be like, hey, Grok, can you add an extra hour to Brian De Palma's?
We'll do it fucking Be Kind Rewind style where it's just you and me reenacting all the scenes from it before we do any AI bullshit. I'll tell you that right now.
Fire and ice, baby.
So anyway, Julio, let's get through the quotes. Who was talking mad shit about this one. And then we'll get to our connection, which will bridge us to something really exciting on our feed right now. So let's start with the haters. Who is giving Orson some shit?
I think that it's relatively easy to make a good movie, not a great one. That's something else.
Manfred's new movie? You do know about that.
All right, some rotten quotes from Rotten Tomatoes website, and I want to commend these critics who are not doing it for the bit that we do. Like, these are people that are like, oh, there's a new Orson Welles movie? Well, I don't care. I'm going to be negative about it. That's good for you. Good for not yielding to peer pressure from your fellow critics. We're going to start with Phil Hall from Cinema Crazed, who said, the cinematic equivalent of throwing spaghetti against the wall. Sadly, nothing really sticks, leaving the viewer with a wasted pasta of a movie.
Wasted pasta? Oh, okay.
Do you do that? Do you cook? I don't. So the question's for you. Do you do the thing where you throw the noodles at the wall to see if they're ready?
No, that's
Does anybody?
Phil Dunphy does that, I think. I feel like I remember him doing that. No, I have my system where depending on the noodle, I have the time I cook it, and then I'll put some tongs in and get like Not like a scoop, but maybe like 3 or 4. I'll get a sample size, put it in a bowl, and test it first.
There you
But
go.
yeah, I'm not throwing anything at a wall.
Your movie would be better than The Other Side of the Wind. You have more of a system.
Thank you. Yes.
Orson Welles. All right. Nathaniel Hood from The Young Folks says, it could have been better. It could have been worse. But this is the one we have. And despite everything, it's a disappointment. I mean, you could say this about pretty much any movie. Could have been better, could have been worse. This is the one we have. Yes, that applies to anything. Josh Kopecki from our very own Austin Chronicle says, it's a mess, and I think perhaps Wells knew it would be. I can envision this as a future cult classic, but you may need the stamina of Houston's liver to get through it.
Okay, that's a very weird review because there's like so much of that. There's so much packed into there of me like shaking my head yes and no at the same time. Cult classic, no. Patience, yes. And also Wells knowing it sucked. Julio and I are not going to bring anything to light or say anything revelatory about the psyche of one George Orson Welles. But at this point in his career, I don't know what the fuck he was trying to make with this, but I don't think he was necessarily concerned with making a good movie.
It's hard to tell. I mean, I can give you some attempted insight based on that documentary that I rewatched today. That I mostly rewatched. I didn't get to finish it, but I watched it several years ago. But there's one thing. There's what the man says, and then there's because he's saying it to cameras. That's his public persona, and there's what he might have truly believed. So if you go by what he was saying, he was attempting to make his masterpiece. This was going to be the movie that not only brought him back to Hollywood's good graces, but maybe the movie that finally would get them to stop thinking of Citizen Kane every time that his name came up, right? This is the one that would top it.
And in the most Orson Welles thing ever, he made like this hate letter to Hollywood.
Yes. So you don't see this as a future cult classic? Like a midnight screening 10 years from now, 20 years from now, if we're still...
Bro, like, come on. Like, there's nothing like dog shit about this. That's the whole point. It's like well made for what it is. Well, also, it could depend on what your definition of cult classic is. To me, a cult classic is you go to a screening of fucking Friday the 13th, Part 4, and everyone just is like sitting on their hands waiting for Crispin Glover's dance scene. Or, saying at the screen, Ted, where's the corkscrew at? That type of shit.
You can't imagine people quoting along with this movie.
Exactly, yeah. I might be wrong. I'd be glad if I am, but...
Who are the fucking nerds that would sell out the screening of The Other Side of the Wind at 1 a.m?
Can you imagine? Like, Eddie and I remember going to a showing of Scream several years ago and kind of laughing and quoting along at some of that. You and I have been to plenty of what you would refer to as cult classic screenings. I'm just imagining the makeup of a human that views Orson Welles' Other Side of the Wind as a cult classic.
Shows up dressed as Peabog to the screen.
Yeah, he's got his glasses on.
All right, let's close with Josh Parham from Next Best Picture, who says, ultimately, it is guesswork by outsiders to determine Welles' true intention for execution, and knowing that always prevents a barrier from becoming truly engaged with storytelling.
That is Julio, you are a master sometimes at these quotes of putting together the right ride to go on, and that is without question the most perfect one you could have pulled to end on. Just because that is basically a summation already of the things I've said of I don't really understand what he was trying to do with this movie. And for me personally, it presents this just kind of wall of I only could get so invested or enveloped in what was happening because, I mean, we know the man Orson Welles, but not personally, obviously, you and I, but we know his makeup and we know what his general outlook was and also his proclivities for constructing art and also imbibing alcohol. But that's this movie, it felt so this movie felt like a ride that I didn't have a ticket to, so that I was behind like the fucking velvet rope or the fence, just watching everyone else do it, ride it, because I was just like, what? I don't understand at all what's supposed to be going on here. So, unbelievable quotes ended on, Julio. I commend you on your choice of that.
If you indulged in aestheticism for its own sake, it could be cold and abstract.
If the audience can't get it, then what's the point of even going to the movie?
I think there's even more to it, though. Not to praise Josh Parham too much. Don't let your head get too big, buddy. But the idea that it could be an issue for some people, not to me, but for some people, the idea that it not being 100% an Orson Welles product, but it also being, you could say, contaminated by interference from other people who are not Orson Welles, who took it upon themselves to finish the movie. I don't care. I watch it and it's like the movie.
Yeah.
But I don't care particularly about Orson Welles. I'm not like a hardcore Orson Welles fan that would tell you, oh, no, I'm sorry, they ruined it. They should have just let it be. Does it bother you? Like the idea that Netflix and, I was looking at on the internet and also the documentary, there's a lot of cooks that jumped in to finish it. The movie was not finished. But some of them were people that were pretty close to Welles, like Peter Bogdanovich. But they're still, it's not Orson Welles. So
no.
Does it bother you at all? And if it doesn't bother you with Orson Welles, is there a filmmaker where it would bother you? Like if Chris Nolan, 50 years from now, there's some movie that he never finished and some other people finish it and release it, would your reaction be like, it's not really Nolan, so I can't really engage with it?
Brother, you can't compare Nolan's style of filmmaking to fucking Orson Welles. And that's part of it. I think now I'm so kind of my head stuck in that cult classic phrase of like, look, okay, so a good example is there's, because of the way like VHS was and TV, late night screenings and shit, like you can find people who aren't movie nerds like you and myself that probably have like an affinity for some really weird B-level horror film. Halloween 2 getting fucking NBC's movie of the week or whatever. There's a chance you could find like normal people who don't really watch movies that, oh man, I watched that Killer Clowns from Outer Space so many times when I was younger, or something like that. What is the mind of like a child who watched like Orson Welles movies over and over again who's not really into movies? So, the what I'm trying to say is, who would be an equivalent director of someone who could have a lost project that was an auteur at the level of Orson Welles that wasn't necessarily, Citizen Kane's obviously one of the most significant movies ever made, but motherfucker wasn't Spielberg in terms of general appeal.
Okay. So we need somebody more niche. Is that what you're saying? Like,
yeah. So like, I made a joke about Terrence Malick earlier. Maybe like a lost Terrence Malick movie.
Who gives a fuck? I'm sorry. Like, I love The Tree of Life. I really like The Thin Red Line, but.
Okay, so we got to find something between Terrence Malick and Spielberg. That's what we got to figure out.
Like, I understand. Yes, Nolan makes big blockbusters, so I get it. How about Marty? Marty, just to keep it like contrarian's theme, because he's one of our favorite filmmakers. I'm just trying to pick also a filmmaker that we would feel a
David
connection.
Fincher. How about that?
Maybe. I mean, I'm trying to figure out if I would care about any of them to where I would say, oh, that's not a real Fincher.
Well, the problem is like my immediate like idea of this is the generation, the time you and I currently live in, Julio. I don't see that possible of a high level filmmaker having a movie that goes lost. That and let's be honest, the part of the reason with this is all the legal rights and shit that went into it. But like Steven Soderbergh, David Fincher, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, fucking even Terrence Malick. None of these motherfuckers are going to make a movie that doesn't get released.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning of the bit, The Black Dahlia. It finally gets released 20 years from now, but it's not De Palma who finishes it. Instead, is I don't know, Kevin Smith.
Okay, why you got to kill it? Right there, Kumali and Johnny gets back. No. He wrote Big Sick. It's Michael Showalter that finishes the Black Dahlia. That's dude, you're joking, but that's as close to like a real example as I can think, because the whole reason this got pushed through was just on sheer force of will. And it's obviously why it went to Netflix, because it wasn't going to make any money, but it's something people are curious in. And it's someone, I made the analogy about Bret Hart, Tom McGee earlier. There came a point in my life where I knew if I ever see this match, it'll never live up to what it is in my mind. And I know there's so many like classic film journalists and students and fucking people in Hollywood and fans that had just built some mythos up in their head about this movie. And when they saw it, it wasn't anywhere near close to that, but they still pretended like it was like that. You know, that's how these things go. I'll be interested to see in my lifetime if we see something like this, because even to the point of the Black Dahlia, at least like the original version or original version was released. You know,
You're right.
This was just this movie that was kind of like thought to have been lost to time.
Well, the Jerry Lewis movie that was never released, right? That's just
correct
oral history.
Yeah. Again, I'm not gonna. This is all off the top of my head with that. I believe there are people that had claimed to have seen it. The premise of it was he played a clown that led Jewish children to the gas chamber in concentration camps. And that like, it was just anyone who like had a testimony of seeing it said like, why would this possibly be made? It was not the same thing as this. It was a movie that was basically just like, this can never be released versus.
Right. So, okay. The Jerry Lewis movie is a movie that nobody wants to release.
Yes.
Okay.
And this one, a lot of people wanted to for a while and it couldn't happen. The production of this movie is endlessly fascinating, and I don't mean to speak for you, Julio, but for me, the story of this movie is more interesting than the movie itself. And I think that's kind of something you would express with the documentary that was made about this. And a huge part of that story is our central figure to close out B2B, Bedroom to Box Office. And that is a cinematographer on this film and someone who had a very close working relationship with Orson Welles, and that was Gary Graver. He was Orson's cinematographer for quite a while, and Gary Graver had one of the working prints of this movie that he was able to, as we found out, kind of tour around with and, do some Q&As. And more importantly, to our subject, Gary was a man who worked extensively in the pornographic industry, not in front of the camera, but behind it. Throughout his career in mainstream cinema, he worked as a writer and director of pornographic films, often credited as Robert McCallum. Graver's work in the adult film industry resulted in more than 135 films, including Unthinkable, which won the AVN Award for Best All-Sex Video in 1985. Graver was later inducted into the AVN Hall of Fame for his contributions to the adult film industry. Gary Graver, a story, Julio, that wasn't completely unheard of, and we talked about this a little bit in, I believe, our Rabbit episode, but throughout the 70s, when you didn't have real work, you wanted to keep busy somehow, and at that point in time, they were still shooting the fuck pictures on film, and, you needed people who knew what they were doing behind the camera.
They cared how they looked.
They did. And an immediate tie-in to our movie here, which I just think is wonderful, is in 1975, there was a porno called 3 a.m. that Gary Graver directed. And according to lore, because Orson was frustrated, he took it. He wanted to expedite the process so he could be freed up to work on the other side of the wind. So Orson agreed to edit the porno that Gary shot here. And according to accounts from film historians, Welles applied his signature low camera angles and distinct editing flair to the film.
As long as I'm still twitching, Brooksy, you ain't going to stick it into me.
Isn't that just what he's doing?
Movies and friendship. Those are mysteries.
So I don't know if there's any way to ever prove it, because that it's certainly the Wild West of filmmaking back in those days. But allegedly, Orson Welles.
It's alleged seriously enough that they mention it in the documentary.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they do.
Okay. So Gary Graver has a very interesting story with the tie-in to this movie, and also just his connection to the film industry. Because look, he wasn't fucking Rob Zombie's cinematographer. He worked for fucking Orson Welles, dude. Like this was he was a legitimate practitioner of his craft, but also had a significant impact in the 70s adult film industry. And currently on the Contrarians feed is an interview with one of my best friends and Gary Graver's nephew, Adam Graver, who, Julio, when we sat down to do that interview, I wasn't quite sure what we were going to come away with, but I know it's been a while since we recorded that. I don't know what your thoughts were, but I thought we got just some fascinating insight to not only, Adam's connection to his uncle, but just some of the stories and anecdotes he had about fucking Orson Welles calling his house and, going to one of the movie premieres of his uncle. I thought it was one of the cooler things we've done in terms of like a summer journey and like a place to end on.
I agree. And it's also, in my mind, it was just pretty delightful because of Adam's personality, because he's just so wholesome. Or at least I think he comes across as wholesome. Whereas like we are on the final stretch of a pretty sexually charged summer event. And so
we spent 2 hours talking about Sasha Grey. So
yeah. But here comes this guy that, he just wants to tell us about like family stories that happen to intersect with what we were doing. And it's great. Go ahead and listen to it if you haven't already. It's right there on the feed, and it's a lot of fun. It will give you some very special insight into Gary Graver, and it also works as a companion piece for the documentary. Alex, I told you the first time I watched the documentary, I didn't know anything about P-Bog. Likewise, I didn't know anything about Gary Graver. Watching the documentary today, rewatching it, having talked to Adam whenever the documentary mentioned Gary Graver, I was like, hey. I know who that guy is. So I hope you guys listen and enjoy. And thank you, Adam, for your time and your willingness to play along, to share.
And he provides what insight he has also into Gary's exploits in the adult film industry. And he also confirms that Orson had such little funding for this movie that he paid Gary with his Oscar that he won for Citizen Kane. And we have a bit of fun discussion about where that thing ended up.
Yes. So that's it. At some point, you can stop now and listen to it right away, or you can wait till we finish Real Talk and then jump into that interview. But that's the extra bonus supplement.
The tease, we're not going to dig as deep into our connection here as others because we have a supplement, as Julio referred to it there, to add on to it. So Gary Graver, our connection to the adult film industry as we wind down the summer of bedroom to box office. But Julio, man, like, now's the point. What do you make of this? I'm very curious because this is such a sampler platter of like filmmaking, and in no way is this a Chili's triple dipper where everything's just like elite.
What kind of triple dipper is this then? If it's not Chili's, what are we talking about?
Oh, it could be Chili's, but it's one you get where like everything's cold and
it's like airport Chili's.
Yes, exactly. Yes. You bite into the mozzarella stick and there's no pull. It's just kind of just kind of a block of cheese. But I'm curious because I remember you talking about this when it came out, but I honestly don't remember your actual like thoughts on the movie. It's, I don't want to say underwhelming, but it's just like, it's not good.
It's not a fun experience. Well, to be honest, it was more fun this time. I think it's a movie that if you can make yourself rewatch, you might come away with a little bit more. I was never going to watch The Other Side of the Wind again on my own. And in fact, I don't know if you remember, but when we first plotted this out, when you just gave me the lineup, I wasn't even sure if I'd seen The Other Side of the Wind. I couldn't remember. That's how little impact it had on me. I remember watching the documentary because that's the one that has a story that you can follow. And that's the one that's really interesting. I think that the most interesting part about The Other Side of the Wind is the behind the scenes making of The Other Side of the Wind. And then watching The Other Side of the Wind, you get more out of it if you know that backstory and if you are familiar with some of the players. So there is something to the fact that it's not just a movie, but it's a movie made by Orson Welles at the end of his career when he was in the doldrums, and that it stars Peter Bogdanovich, who was his protege, who was on the rise, and that it stars John Huston, who was a venerated director that was friends with Welles. So the average person, not to be as pretentious as Orson Welles is, but I think the average person doesn't know any of this. And why should they? But the average person that fires up Netflix and sees this and hits play, generously, they would be underwhelmed. and at worst, they would be kind of repulsed by the lack of a narrative. And the only reason that what happens on screen is interesting is because it's Orson Welles and his friends, and we know that. But if you don't know that, I don't know. I don't think that there's anything really that successfully pulls you into the movie. Would you say that's a fair assessment? To the extent that you were involved, that you were engaged in the movie whenever you were engaged, was it mainly because you're like, oh, that's Peter Bogdanovich, that's Orson Welles, and they were kind of playing versions of themselves? Well, that was John Huston playing Orson Welles, and
yeah.
that was...
No, yeah, I understand what you're asking, and yeah, that's completely accurate because of all the ups and downs we went through with P-Bog and Orson Welles just being the enigmatic character that he is. That is enough to hold my attention. But basically anytime anyone else was doing anything, unless it was like a wild Dennis Hopper appearing, I was just kind of like, move this along. What are we doing here? To the point where, yeah, like I said, what's Orson Welles' gal's name in this? Oja Kodar?
Kodar? Yeah.
She's like smoking hot and she's naked for 50% of this movie. And I was just kind of like, all right, can we do something else here?
Can she put some clothes on so we can move on to the next scene?
What's Bogdanovich doing?
There is, I 100% recommend, if you haven't watched The Other Side of the Wind, I recommend you watch the documentary before watching The Other Side of the Wind, because I think the context it provides can at least help you stay with the movie a little bit longer. It might still not work for you, but I think it gives you more. It helps you more than Orson Welles does, behind the camera. And if you've watched The Other Side of the Wind already, I also recommend watching the documentary, because then maybe retroactively provides context. It's kind of, I'm kind of torn rewatching it today. Like, what I have forgotten is that it has segments that are in the style of the BuzzFeed documentaries that you and I don't like, with the silly sound effects, and it does this thing that I was like, this is so fucking cheesy, that they will ask a question and then they will grab footage of Orson Welles either from, an interview or from a movie of his where he's acting, and they would use that clip as an answer to the question or to underline something that the voiceover has said. And I was like, this is just unnecessary. Treat me like an adult.
Yeah.
But if you look past that, it's kind of cool. Alan Cumming is the narrator, is the guy that's providing the voiceover, tying things together. Nightcrawler, yeah.
Our movie starts long before things went wrong. And they did go horribly wrong.
He's into it. He takes it seriously. He provides the gravitas. And then there's interviews with a lot of people, including Bogdanovich, that were part of the production. And it recounts the relationship between Welles and Bogdanovich in a way that really enriches what you see in the actual movie. Because this is fascinating, Alex. Look, the Bogdanovich part, and maybe you've read about this, but the Bogdanovich part, so the what's his name? It's amazing name in this movie.
Brooks Otterlake?
Yeah, Brooksy. Brooksy was originally played by someone else. It was played by this comedian that Welles had met at a variety show or something. And this guy was known for doing impersonations, which is why the character was originally pitched as this guy, this filmmaker that was constantly doing impersonations. Basically, they had it set up to where every line the guy was doing like a different voice. And this guy actually did it. He's not like Bogdanovich that does it, but, he's not a real impersonator. So the guy gets hired. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll work on your movie. But he tells him, I only have 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, I have to go because I'm a comedian. I have like projects that I am committed to. So Orson Welles, of course, shoots with this guy, but blows past the deadline. And the guy's like, I'm sorry, it's 3 weeks. I have to go. And he leaves the production. So Orson Welles then says, well, fuck this guy. I'm going to reshoot everything, all his scenes. And now I'm going to have Bogdanovich play the character.
Beast.
Yes, except that he didn't really have the money to do that. So he just like blows through his budget. But now he has Bogdanovich playing a character that in a way was Bogdanovich to begin with. The protege that's coming into his own and becoming more successful than his mentor. And it is what I told you in Contreras Corner. Like, this is Bogdanovich around the time that Last Picture Show is about to happen. So he already had targets in the back. And by the way, apparently that final scene, like the drive-in, is a drive-in from Targets. It's the same place where they shot that.
So when I was watching this and that shot that was panning out at the end, I was like, I've seen this before. I was like, is that the drive-in from Grease? And I was like, no. And then my brain immediately just went into overdrive about our Peter Bogdanovich summer, and I couldn't remember the name of that movie. Looked it up. I just had to look up Peter Bogdanovich, Boris Karloff, because that's the main thing.
Yes.
And Targets is an incredible fucking movie. I just couldn't remember the name of it, but yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that, but when I looked it up, I'm like, yeah, it looks pretty similar, and kind of just knowing the filmmaking style of the time, that doesn't surprise me, but that's fantastic.
Now, knowing all this, look at what happens in the movie. In The Other Side of the Wind, John Huston is throwing a party, and the lead actor in his movie within a movie has walked away from the project. And the entire movie is about him, being angry that the guy left. And that's really what happened in the shooting of The Other Side of the Wind, of the actual movie by Orson Welles. He had a lead who was his comedian. I know. And you're like, oh, is that a coincidence? I was like, no, that has to have been intentional, because in the documentary, they also interview Orson Welles about the movie, about The Other Side of the Wind. And, when he's trying to pitch it to people, it's like, this is my next project. This is the one that's going to bring me back. And he's talking about it just being fully improvisational. He's like, I'm not going to have really a script. It's just going to be people, giving a situation, and they're just going to talk and, act in character while I shoot it. And then everything is going to come together in post-production. So I think that probably, he just came up with that side of the movie halfway through production when he lost his main guy, and they had to get Bogdanovich to replace him. He was like, all right, I'll make this part of the movie, which is insane, like, for anybody to work that. And so, is he a genius because it kind of comes together, or is he a fool because it's like, you shouldn't be making movies like this? How do you feel, Alex? Do you appreciate the big swing?
I just hear George Costanza saying, it's the chicken and the egg. Yes, of course I appreciate a big swing, but what was Drop Dead Gorgeous is a movie we did, and Christopher Guest was very famous for those mockumentary styles movies, Best in Show and whatnot. What was gained by making the heavy air quotes documentary portion of this movie so much more expensive by shooting it on 3 different types of film? Like that, like, I think of that, and I think of the presentation of it all, and I appreciate the ambition, and then even like the very fucking meta storytelling. But I don't know.
But for what?
Yeah, I guess that's the deal. At the end of the day, like, after this viewing, I was so bored for the majority of this movie. And even when I perked up, it was because John Huston was playing Orson Welles or Peter Bogdanovich was doing something. And I did, to give credit to John Huston, I was very, very, very drawn in and invested is the word I was looking for there, in the scene with the teacher from Bob Random's Youth or whatever, Dale or whatever his name was, just because John Huston was acting so insane. But yeah, I don't know, like, even with all the meta aspects to it and stuff, I don't even want to do this shit where I'm like, it's something I appreciate, I just, it's not really for me.
I think if Orson Welles was alive, he would tell you 2 things. He would say, young man, number 1, imagine if I had stuck the landing. Then you would have been like, oh, okay, so it worked. And then he would say, and number 2, you will never know, because Netflix and P-Bog and everybody else that finished the movie didn't really pull it off the way I would have if I'd had the money and the time. So in that sense, I guess, we can never fully blame Orson Welles for the movie's shortcomings because maybe he would have pulled it off if he had been him behind the driver's seat the entire time. But I don't know. I mean, we're joking about him not being interested in the narrative necessarily, and that's what it sounds like in those interviews, in the documentary. You know, he's just saying he's very excited about how he's going to shoot it, but not necessarily about this story. You know, whenever he brings up the story, he's like, yeah, it's just about this aging filmmaker. And maybe it was meant to be autobiographical in that sense, even though they also have him say several times in the documentary that the movie's not about him. But it's really hard not to draw the parallels, especially once you put Bogdanovich there. You know, like this guy that's seen as being past his prime, struggling to get the movie finished. I mean, that's literally the story of The Other Side of the Wind. Like they ran out of money. They needed money to finish it, you know, just like the movie, in him seeing a new generation of filmmakers kind of lap him, you know, just having more success than he does and doing things that he doesn't do anymore. I would like to think that he was trying to say something about that, but it just never came together. And it's like they not come together because he just ran out of money and just didn't get to shoot things, or because they just didn't put it together the way that he would have. A lot of the editing, according to the story, a lot of the editing was already done. Like he already kind of established the rhythm of the movie. So all those cuts and all the you know, the mix of the black and white and the different types of film and all that stuff, like that's something that is from him. That's how he wanted the movie to look. What does it gain with that? I don't know. I mean, I understand, or at least I think that he's trying to capture the feeling of like constantly being under observation. That's what was, you know, we kind of joked about it in Contreras Corner, the idea that you live a life where everything you say has an audience. I wonder if he felt like that at you know, at his most successful, that everything he said, there was always like a whole bunch of people with cameras recording what he was saying. And that feels, you know, this movie kind of gives you that feeling because there's constantly people recording, and that's why you have the different visuals. It's like, oh, well, there's like the young students with their cameras, and then there's the people with the microphones, and then there's what's happening in real life, the people that are eavesdropping. And there's a point where somebody says, one of the many characters just yells at one of the kids as like, no recording here, or, you know, take that camera off. And it's like, oh, that's right. They're always recording. I don't know. I wish that we had an Orson Welles, like somebody needs to conduct like like pull out the Ouija board and have a just a conversation with Orson Welles. Yeah, we're like, hey, what do you think of this cut? You know, how close did they get to what you wanted to do? And maybe Wells would tell you, oh, actually, they nailed it. And then we'd be like, all right, well, it doesn't work.
Why are you defending a corrupt system?
No, I'm not defending the system. You don't see the point. You don't see the point at all. I hate the system.
Oh, man, for like, obviously this conversation we've had and just kind of some of the things we've called out, it's something I suppose you have to be kind of grateful for, or at least appreciative of, because we have scrambled to figure out what like a modern equivalent would be. And for someone like Orson Welles and this story to go on for so long and be finally unearthed, you know, streaming one, physical media 9 million, but at least they got one in their court. And
I am glad that you can at least give Netflix that much grace.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to watch this documentary also just to complete the circle. Yeah, this is why that exists, because, like I said, this satiated a very niche audience. And even in all my used to be better physical media, movie theater bullshit, like all that was going to happen is if someone put this into like a big push for like a theater release, is someone is going to lose a lot of money. So it's worth it for things like this, that we have the system that we do currently. It's, you know, it's not what we have to do with everything. But anyway, yeah, if an interesting movie, I don't want to like say, because I had no expectations going into it, so I shouldn't be like, I felt disappointed at the end of it. But I don't know, Julio. Do you think there's an era that if this got released in the late 70s, do you think it's regarded as some like brilliant ahead of its time movie? Or do you think there's any time where this really gets like a big time moment in the sun and heralded as some like brilliant piece of business? Or for me, anytime this came out, it was always just kind of be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think that it's one of the questions that we started with. That are we actually? It's not like this is a mainstream hit, but whatever praise it's getting right now, it's a big part of it is just the fact that what we appreciated as an Orson Welles posthumous release, right? If he actually had gotten through the full process and released it in the late 70s, would people have connected to it? Would they have just rolled their eyes at this the way that he was perceived? This has been throwing a tantrum about Hollywood and making fun of the people that funded his movies or the people that refused to fund his movies and making fun of European cinema. Would they have just been like, oh, it's another weird Orson Welles movie, and then they move on? I think that his idea that this was going to be the next Citizen Kane, that might have been asking for too much.
Off the mark a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I could be wrong. It maybe would have revolutionized cinema in a way. I mean, it's kind of a tall order because Citizen Kane was so transformative, and how do you do that again? You just can't.
But yeah, also, if you get, I'm rethinking my thesis now. You get this out in the mid 70s after Paper Moon comes out. Peter Bogdanovich has a little bit of a name. Yeah.
Okay. Now you're talking. Yes. So it's up to the marketing team to really
Correct.
tell you. Yeah. Hey, Orson Welles, remember him? Well.
Or you finally you have a studio that goes all in to get it released in 1988 after Illegally Yours.
Jesus.
Which, by the way, I forgot to tell you when you were over at my house last week that in said trek of physical media hunting, in which I recently picked up, what did I tell you I got? Oh, The African Queen. I also found an old VHS copy of Illegally Yours. So,
but you did not get it.
Oh no, I did.
I mean, I was gonna laugh no matter what the answer was.
No, because it was one of those things where it had like the old labels on it from a video store, and I told you how nostalgic that it was. Fucking $1, $2. So yeah, I wasn't put out by it. So
well, Rob Lowe thanks you.
He does, and we had such a fun time with that episode.
Well, I think all things considered, and I think I told you at the beginning, I do feel better about the movie now than I did when I watched it back in 2018. I don't know that would happen to everybody. I think that we accidentally benefited from the Bogdanov films stretch that we did a couple years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, like I said, the documentary connection, it also helps. I would recommend this to cinephiles only.
Correct.
Do you know a person in your life that you would be like, oh, this is right up their alley?
No.
Like on my day-to-day life, I don't either. I think that maybe our friend and patron Jordan Mans, I know he likes Orson Welles probably more than you and I. But does that mean that he would like this movie? I don't know. But that's probably at least, a bit of an entry point. So for the average Contrarians listener, I don't know. I guess it's up to you, like how you feel about Welles and how curious you are about big swings and misses. But if you generally just listen to the show to listen to us make fun of pretentious movies, you can probably skip this one.
Yeah. It's an interesting story, like you said, but it's
2 hours,
Yeah, I was wanting to like look through all of like I wanted to look past like it's an interesting story and like really find something to connect to in there, and I truly couldn't. But on your feed right now, our interview with Adam Graver is pretty awesome. So that is a definite positive to come from it.
There you go. But that interview does not affect my rating. Does it affect yours?
No. Yeah, like Julio said, Adam's just, it's also part of the comedy of Adam, how just fucking deadpan he is in his delivery of things. But no, this, like a Dead Center C, like it looks good and there's some interesting ideas, etc., etc. Doesn't mean it's a good movie. Kind of a whimper to end on, but I think the overall story is an appropriate place to conclude. So Julio, what about you? I Dead Center C for me.
This gets two different ratings because I think that on its own it's 2 stars, but I think and it should be 2 stars. I think I'm going to up it to 3 stars on rewatch, but that is because my experience is informed by all these other things. Your movie shouldn't need all these other things to become a watchable movie. You know what I mean? If you have to watch a Netflix documentary to make
Endgame,
sense
yeah.
of, yeah. And so 2 stars by itself, 3 stars once you have watched the documentary and have become more familiar with the behind the scenes stuff between Orson Welles and Peter Bogdanovich and everything else going on with Orson Welles' career. It's up to you. You know who you are. You know if you are the kind of person that might enjoy this movie. At least it's on Netflix and it's gonna be on Netflix forever because they they made the deal. So you have time. You have time to like figure it out. I wouldn't say it's a whimper, Alex. I think it's a wild left turn from where we were going, but we ended somewhere unexpected.
Fair. I appreciate you putting a positive spin on it.
Our revels now are ended.
You bet your sweet cheeks.
It's over, Alex. Do you have? We're not have a full on closing ceremony for the summer event. We'll include all these movies on the Embreeze in a couple months. But
yeah.
Do you have a specific highlight of this bedroom to box office journey?
Oh, definitely. My maiden viewing of Inherent Vice.
Really?
The pause on that was outstanding.
I was almost ready to say it in unison with you. I was going to say The Girlfriend Experience, but no, apparently not.
No, well, because I had seen that before, but our discussion about that and some of the conclusions we came to, and also talking about how unfortunately ahead of its time that movie was in terms of going to streaming the day it was released, and all the stuff we talk about in that episode. But no, Inherent Vice, that I hadn't seen that before, and that was really dug that movie. But to your point, we were both in unison of how good Sasha Grey was in The Girlfriend Experience. So yeah, well, I mean, those were 2 back-to-back ones. So that's the peak of this, with the I think the low light being Romance.
Yes,
yeah.
100%. Orson Welles, the ghost of Orson Welles, appalled on the sidelines.
Because we had fun with everything else except for Romance.
Yeah. It was just awkward. We're just squeamishly walking on eggshells throughout the Romance episode.
And then, like, I told you, like, the real shit that, like, was involved in the making, and you were like, God damn it, why?
All right. Well, that was Bedroom to Box Office. Please share your highlights, your lowlights with us. Do you remember what happens now, Alex, on our main feed?
Oh, boy. What is it?
Well, it's something that our patrons have already listened to. That we recorded an episode.
Oh my God! Yes, moons ago. Yes, this is Troy.
Wolfgang Petersen's story of how Brad Pitt and Nero from Star Trek, Eric Bana, got into it. It's for patrons. They got it early. They got it as a tie-in to the release of the Odyssey, and now towards the end of August, it becomes available for everybody else. And we're going to tack on something else to that episode, and that is our talk about the actual Odyssey, something else that we recorded separately after Alex and I had watched it. So even if you listen to it on the Patreon feed, now you have another reason, a reason to re-listen, because there'll be extra content. So that's coming up on the main feed. Then on the Patreon feed, the aforementioned Patreon feed, as we record this, the episode on the movie Wings, the 1966 Wings. It's already gone up. Very sad Soviet movie about a pilot. Alex and I had a good discussion about it. There's also, by the time this drops, the 4th Julio de Matches should be up. Finally, Alex walks me through the Undertaker versus
Mick Foley.
Mick Foley versus Mick Foley. I almost said Randy Orton. That's the other one. It's a lot of wrestler names floating in my brain these days. So you can listen to that. And I'm sure we'll have a couple other things. I'm looking at the feed. And of course, we're all out of whack because we took a big break. But just check patreon.com/concernprime. That's where you can find the list of all the things that we have. Just join the Concern Supplements and enjoy. Alex, we're getting out of the bedroom. We're leaving the box office.
Indeed, Julio. out of the bedroom. The box office is closed. We're going to spend some time with Homer.
And Marge and Bart and so on.
Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Corey Ari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
Just for old time's sake, I really don't